it is. But I really love this blouse. I bought it in New Zealand. In a store for small people.
Are there Hobbit stores in New Zealand?
I'm not kidding that there is a useful thing for stores for small people where you don't have to hem everything and it doesn't hang down to your knees. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out. Virtual audience, thank you very much for joining us. We are doing a St. Patrick's Day kind of preview, although the book does not actually take us to St. Patrick's Day, but instead we are looking in 1909, and we are looking at amazing celebrations in New York City. Now, I know that you're the history researcher in this deal, although your mother, for years, was the person who read, like, old phone books and directories.
Yeah, I did. Well, for years, I collected everything. Sears catalog, restaurant menus, everything, just to give you what was really like at the time. Well, when Claire took over, she reads the New York Times for every day that we write about, and she is quite fanatical. She finds fabulous little tidbits and things that really draw you into the time, but also she gets a little too fanatical sometimes. She's actually said to me, "Now, you make sure that Molly takes an umbrella because it's going to rain that afternoon." And I have to say, it's fiction. We can make it not rain if we want to.
Well, I have to say that I feel a bit like I'm about to take an exam on a test that I studied for a year ago, because there were so many historical details that went into this book. Mm-hmm. And of course, we've written another book since. And so I think, now, do I remember all those historical details? They are in the book.
Yeah, there will be a test.
Yeah. Luckily, I am here. Yeah. And have read some of them. Now, I would like to say that Alva Belmont, who was originally Alva Vanderbilt, is a really fascinating character. How many of you have been to Newport, Rhode Island? Any of you been there? So you have been to Breakers, the fabulous mansion that Alva, I think, kept when she divorced Commodore William Vanderbilt, her husband. And then she married an even richer, well, at least as rich guy called Augustus Belmont. And in this book, he has now died, so she's now a widow with an enormous amount of money and kind of at the top of the social order. And it's because of her and her beautiful house and all that much of your story actually works.
Absolutely. And the thing maybe no one saw coming is how much of a suffragist she is, that she was a preeminent suffragist and put a lot of her money behind the cause. So we're able to bring her in because we have Sid and Gus, who are getting more involved in the suffrage movement. And now we have this great patroness who offers the armory of her house, which really was an armory. There were guns on the walls and swords on the walls and a suit of armor, which is a lovely place to have a mystery novel.
It sounded like that medieval room at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and I wondered, did she leave some of all that to the Met? Because they have this extraordinary room that is full of armaments of all kinds at the Met.
Well have done. Yeah,
I'm wondering if that's where it came from. I hadn't really thought about that. If you go to the Breakers, they sell a wonderful plaque, and I'm trying to remember something about modest or unassuming women. Anyway, let's say unassuming because I can't remember the first word. Unassuming women rarely make history. Yeah, I mean, that's not quite it.
It's something. It's like
well-behaved.
Well-behaved.
Well-behaved women seldom make history, and boy, does she live up to that.
Yeah. Interesting is she started off not really humble, but fairly humble. She wasn't she wasn't in those levels of the Vanderbilts before she married him. And then she managed, of course, to get her daughter married off to become Duchess of Marlborough. And, you can't get much higher than that. So she was a great, she was a suffragist and a dedicator. She was a tremendous wheeler dealer, too. Taking her daughter away, because this comes into the next book, taking her daughter away from the person she wanted to marry and saying, no, we've got a duke over here. So, yeah.
She was also a patron of the arts and founded the Metropolitan Opera's, trying to remember, I belonged to it forever. I'm having a hard time. I'm still asleep. Whatever the women's support crew. Anyway, she founded that as Mrs. Augustus Belmont. She didn't use her name Vanderbilt for that. So she was a huge influence. Anyway, in your story, you also have a different woman who is really obnoxious, and she is the Boston relative, outsized, larger than life, and thoroughly dictatorial. And is Gus's, what is she, cousin, aunt?
Cousin
Okay.
Prudence.
Yes.
Yeah, cousin Prudence
Yeah.
is booming away in the background
Yeah,
in this story.
yeah.
Cousin Prudence is the exact opposite in the sense that she wants the world to, stay the way it was
Yeah, absolutely,
when she
yeah.
was a
Yeah.
girl. So this is really a story about different roles and perceptions of women and how they are changing in the turn of the 20th century. And, it takes me all the way back to, because Rhys and I have been together for this entire series,
Yep.
all the way from
2001 we started.
Yep,
Yeah.
from Molly Murphy.
Yeah.
And Molly, when she first arrived as an immigrant from Ireland and, landed at Ellis Island and wasn't sure she could make it into the U.S. at all, this is a very different Molly.
Well, yeah, she's come a long way. I mean, those first few books, she's literally clinging on by her fingertips. Has everybody read the first book in the series? Anybody who hasn't? Oh well, you see, great. So you'll know she had to flee from Ireland. When the man who's trying to rape her, she thinks she's killed him, and so coming to New York, she comes under another woman's name, and then she's accused of murder. So literally, her arrival is so precarious. And then the next few books, she's literally hanging on by her fingertips. How do I make enough money to survive? And then gradually she gets, she finds she can be a detective, and she meets Daniel, and things go up and down with him for quite a few books. We have quite a few books of will they, won't they, which is always fun. But then eventually they marry. So she's now in a stable marriage. She has 2 children. She has an adopted teenage daughter, and her life is she could just be a nice, calm housewife now. She finds that boring. And she wants the challenge she remembers the excitement of when she was a detective and when she was following someone and when her heart was beating a bit faster. She wants that again. And now she's saying to herself, can I do both? And of course, her neighbors, Sid and Gus, are encouraging her, you need to be your own person again. And so they give her an assignment. Right, Claire? Well, Claire, tell us the background about why we chose this very time.
Well, so the first thing that I always do is read the New York Times, and for that year or those months. And so I was looking in September of 1909, and everything is about this big Hudson-Fulton celebration. Well, I had never heard of that in my life, and yet it's huge and weeks long. So it turns out that there was a series of parades, huge naval parade with ships from different fleets from around the world, and parade down Fifth Avenue. That there are 3 parades actually. There was
there was the historic one, there was the military one,
and a
then the
carnival
yeah.
one, and 2 million people came into New York City to watch this huge spectacle. And so as I'm reading about this, I get this picture of a group of women falling down in a die-in on a Grecian float, and then one of them does not get up, and she is dead. Mm-hmm. And that was the impetus for the whole book.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've been overdosing on New Orleans.
Well, if you see pictures of those old floats, they're really elaborate. I mean, some of them are very. Have you seen pictures of the Carnival in Nice, with these enormous, larger-than-life figures that move and everything? These were giant floats pulled by several horses, and so intricate and so wonderful. And the thing, more than anything, you would have been if you'd lived it, was the whole city was lit up with electric light. Now, at that time, there were lots of houses who didn't have electric light yet. So imagine what they were thinking when, the whole city's glowing. And there was a German battleship, an English battleship, and of course, there was a Japanese battleship. How come the German ship got to go ahead of me? There was a lot of that going on. But
there were some real sort of previews of World War I going on there between Germany and Japan and so forth. Before we go any further, I want to apologize for the fact that the air conditioning duct is unstable. It won't fall down, but it clangs. and we have to get a sheet metal person to come in and fix it. So when it turns off, you're going to hear a and then a and it's not going to fall on your head, I promise. But it scares everybody when it happens the first time. It's really annoying.
So if somebody's lying prone on the floor, just ignore them.
It really scared a woman out of her chair the other night, so I thought I should alert you. I know. Who knew that it was going to be such a pain? Anyway.
Another really interesting historical detail that made it into the book was an opera reception, or a reception that was given at the Opera House, at which Julia Ward Howe had written a poem for the Fulton celebration, and at which a choir started the song that she had written the words to, Glory, Glory, Alleluia.
Yeah.
And the entire audience stood up and sang it with her, really. And she was the only woman on that stage. Everybody else, every presenter, everybody from the committee, they were all men, 150 men. But she was the lone woman. She gave the poem, and then everyone stood up to honor her.
But can you imagine that? This is the celebration, the pre-kickoff. They invite 150 men who were the committee. They didn't have one woman on the committee. And just think how more smoothly everything would have gone if they had a few.
Had some women.
No, it was pretty outrageous. This is the old Opera House, and I think it's 35th Street. Anyway, this is not Lincoln Center, which is 20th century thing. And the celebration is Henry Hudson's discovery of the Hudson. So that would have been, what, the 300th?
300.
And then Robert Fulton, who developed the steam engine, is the guy that allowed the river to become a transportation hub because of the boats. So that's why it was a twin celebration.
And there's a rather amusing event that we put into the book that actually happened, was in the newspaper, was when the naval parade starts off. It's supposed to be led by a replica of Henry Hudson's, is it the Half Moon?
Half Moon.
And then the Fulton boat. They collided with each other and got damaged, and so the Henry Hudson boat had to be towed up the river because of that.
Well, at least it wasn't the Fulton boat. That would have looked even worse, right? No, I mean, I'm looking ahead to July. It's sort of hard to imagine that we could pull off a anniversary celebration with the same united feeling that you're showing us in this book over the Hudson Fulton thing.
Yes.
Well, I think New York, I think you see this with the St. Louis Fair too. They want to show off, this is what we've become. America's no longer a backwater. Look at New York now. We've got electric light everywhere. We've got, so I think a lot of money was put into it so that it could focus on what America has become these days.
And speaking of the electric light, that was another huge historical thing that they strung up electric lights all along the city so that the entire city was lit up, especially right around the Hudson, and the bridges were lit up. Yeah. So it was really the first time in history that had ever happened, that it had been this incredible display of lights.
Yeah. So what we have here is Molly is more diffident in this book than she was in the earlier ones, and partly that is because with a young daughter, a baby actually, and a younger child, there was not a lot of acceptance for a mom to become a working mom and leave her children to go off and do dangerous things like detecting. Mm-hmm. So that's a problem she has to face. The other problem is that Daniel, as now an agent for what will be, or already is, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And he's left the police department to take this new job, which is kind of risky, but he hasn't been paid yet. So they really don't have any money, and Molly is really struggling trying to find enough grocery money. She has to decide whether she can have eggs for breakfast or something. So she does have a financial motive for agreeing to investigate the death of this woman.
And I think, that's another thing we're showing about a woman juggling a career and motherhood is, how do you pay the bills, and at the same time, how do you take care of your family? So, it's...
But it's not even that. I think there was criticism in the sense that you couldn't put yourself in danger if you had young children.
No, I mean, I think
it wasn't just about the money.
Yeah, I think she thinks that too. You know, it does in the back of her mind. Like, you can't anymore run after a crook and get him into a corner and say, "You naughty man, I've arrested you." You know. But the reason that he hasn't been paid yet, I should point out, is that the approval has to go through Congress, and we know what that's like, don't we?
We really do. Also, Daniel, well, I won't reveal that, but there's an additional reason. That's part of the story you could read to find out. An additional reason they're short of money. So the fact that she would get paid by, it's Gus that hires her, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. That she would get paid by her neighbors across the way there in Patchen Place was a good thing.
Yeah.
Yes, and they have always been like her fairy godmothers, but in this case, they are worried a woman that is supposed to be staying with them for the celebration has not shown up, and they can't find where she is. But the main thing is they don't know if she wants to be found or not. They don't know if she's using this opportunity to escape from her husband and from her life. And so they want Molly to find her before a Pinkerton man that her husband has hired finds her, to find out, do you want to be found? And if she doesn't want to be found, just let her go.
Yeah. Yeah, so we were talking, Barbara was saying that this book is a story about the various roles of women. And this is another one in that she is a female scientist. She's a brilliant woman. She's researching viruses that have just been discovered at this time. But all of her papers have to be published in her husband's name. And she cannot get a job anywhere unless her husband is hired there first.
To be fair, Marie Curie was not allowed to publish all her findings in her own name, but they had to be published under her husband's name. So, I mean, that was the norm at that time.
Yeah.
And then we've seen it later in the double helix. Any of you who've read about Watson and Crick and how they suppressed the work of, what was her name, Rosalind something?
Yeah.
Who actually did the underlying science for the discovery of DNA in the double helix, but the guys, stole, right.
Yeah.
I think that's coming out more and more now, how many female scientists or inventors came up with, and mathematicians, came up with something brilliant, only to have some man walk off with it and say, yeah, I've done this, aren't I wonderful, you know? Well, Galileo's daughter, I mean, is a classic example of that too.
And I just saw it on a show somewhere, something about the Brooklyn Bridge, that the engineer,
there's a
male
book on it.
engineer,
Yes.
yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Gilded Age showed that, that it was really his wife that was the main engineer.
Yeah. Okay, women, let's rise up.
Well, there we are. So, Gus and across the street, the two women across the street who lived together unconventionally at the time, but they had enough money to get away with it, are, very supportive. And Alva, now Belmont, formerly Vanderbilt, is also a woman who has enough money and enough, there it went, see, enough social status to do things on her own. I'm so glad you remembered it was well-behaved women. I was thinking all the way down here. I was thinking, what was that?
So I would know.
Right. So anyway, what was the murder scene? Because I think it was kind of clever the way you describe it.
So Sid and Gus are part of the suffrage movement, and they are going to have their own float. And Molly is quite suspicious about what they are going to do with this float. They try to get one on women into the historical parade, the historical role of women, but those men only want to see a homemaker's float, or the bridey is able to be one on educated women, and they're supposed to be cooking and, learning about how to take care of children. So they decide to do it in the carnival parade, and they have a huge float of winged victory. And so
Mount Olympus, and
yes.
Nike. It's Nike.
So the English ambassador is going to be there in the main grandstand, and what we know right now is that suffragettes in England were being force-fed. They were being jailed and force-fed, and so to make this point, as they get right in front of the English ambassador, all these Greek goddesses die in front of him. They do a die-in, and sashes come down and votes for women go up. But then when the police move in to arrest them, and when everyone rises, one person does not rise. I won't tell you who. I don't want to give it away. One person does not rise, and there has been a murder.
And so part of the story is deciphering how that happened, which we're not going to tell you because you'll have to read the book. But still, I think it's a great visual image. I really like that, that they're all having a die-in, except it's real for one person. But the German ambassador is not enlightened about the role of women either. No.
Well, it's interesting because the German ambassador's wife was an American woman.
Yes.
And so she is friends with someone that we need to talk to during the story. So, and she seems quite comfortable with her life, doesn't she?
She does, and in some ways she had quite a sad life after that, because she is the German ambassador's wife, and then very quick, but she's a New Yorker. She's a native New Yorker, and then after that, we go to war with Germany, and she wasn't able to come back. She was stuck in Germany until, after the war. And I don't want to give too much away, but there might have been a little espionage going on there as we're getting close to World War I, about what the Germans might have been spying on us a little bit leading up to that.
Yeah, I mean, that hits close to home at the moment, since here we are again. And it's hard to know whose side who is on and all the rest of it. War is really very unnerving in that sense, that people you think you don't necessarily know. People have hidden loyalties or other things going on. Although I think in this case, where we are at the moment is probably not a big question, but still.
And I think this book sort of shows there could be a whole class of people that might have been children together, young adults all together, and yet when war breaks out, some might be on some side, some might be on another. Maybe they've come from very many different places, and that, I think that's true of this sort of class of people that are gathered together at the Opera House in this book.
So the family dynamic between Molly and Daniel is an interesting one in this book. There's more tension in it than there might be, and part of it is because Daniel's in charge of security for this whole pageant thing going on, and so the disruptors, the people about to do the die-in, are not going to find favor with him because it's going to make him look. And, if it really goes badly, it's possible that he would lose his job, or the whole FBI presence in New York would be booted out, because it's a very new thing. The Federal Reserve System was in the process of kind of coming together up until right around this time. Every state had its own banking laws and had its own banks. There was no national bank system or whatever. And so there are a number of national institutions. I know that from the last Graham Brown book. It was Jack DeBrule for Clive Cussler, really researched this whole thing. It was a terrific book, from which I learned something that never occurred to me. That, it's easy to forget how fragmented some things were, and how some of the central organizations that we've depended on until recently came together. So the formation of the FBI, the formation of the Federal Reserve System, all these things are early 20th century.
Among those is the fact that women in Wyoming could vote.
That's right. I forgot about that.
They'd already allowed women to vote, and they actually had a female mayor in Wyoming at that time. And of course, she couldn't vote. They couldn't vote in federal elections, but they were allowed to choose their local councillors and things. But Molly's in an untenable position because Daniel says, I think something's going on with the suffragists. Can you find out what? So does she betray her friends, or does she help her husband? And if she doesn't help her husband and something terrible goes wrong, is he going to lose his job? And, her life will come crashing down. So it's really, really very difficult position to be in.
Yeah, It's a complicated book, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, you handled it very well. I had to read right to the end, which is one reason I took a nap. I was reading it right till the end there. Anyway, I think you'll really enjoy it, and it leaves us on a kind of a cliffhanger that may or may not ever be written.
It has been written.
Oh, it has been written. Okay. Well, you'll be relieved to know that. I'm glad I asked because
we leave it on a question mark, which we're not going to tell you. And in the next book, you'll find out what the question mark is. What is more is we've just been offered a contract for so we're up to Molly 25, which I think is amazing when you think how most series, how long do they run? So it's really my great new co-writer who comes up with all the good ideas now. That's brilliant.
That's wonderful news.
Yeah,
I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll keep on going. All right, questions from all of you. We probably said everything we can say about the book. What would you like to ask anybody? No? You're all worried the ceiling will come down on you.
Yes.
So you guys worked together. So did you come up with the ideas and she wrote it, or did you guys co-wrote?
We co-write,
Yeah.
and we sort of play around with ideas together. I normally do the initial looking at sort of what is the scene, almost like looking at the scenery in a theater or something. This is what we have to play with. This is what's going on. And then it's sort of, well, what could happen with this going on in history? And then we bounce ideas off of each other.
Yeah. And Claire's taking over more and more. To start with, we would sort of literally, I'll take this scene, you take that scene. But now, I'm doing 2 books a year apart from this, which is quite a challenge anyway. So Claire is taking over much more of the writing, and I'm sort of sitting in the background reading this and saying, let's do this and let's do that. But, she's really good. I don't need to do much, which is very nice.
When we do write alternate scenes, people can't tell who wrote what, and in fact, we don't remember.
We can't tell. No,
we don't remember
can't,
who
no.
wrote what
No.
part.
Yeah.
Because then we edit each other's work. So if she writes a scene, then I edit it. I write a scene, she edits it. We don't remember who did what part of it at all.
Yeah. I mean, that was the thing when Claire first came to me, 6 years ago now, was it? Goodness. Yeah. And said, I think
Yeah, it was 2020.
Yeah, because this is number 6.
Oh, my God. Yeah, okay. It seems like yesterday.
Yeah, she came to me and said, I think I'd like to write Molly with you, because I'd put it on hold, but I was getting all these emails all the time. When is there going to be another Molly book? And so I said, well, let's give it a go. And I was a little bit hesitant in case it didn't work, because I didn't want to hurt my daughter either, but she read all 17 books, which there were at the time. She came in with Molly's voice absolutely perfect and with brilliant ideas, and it's been great since then.
Does that mean that Evan might return?
That's what people keep asking. The other day someone said, isn't Evan coming back? Well, I'm doing 2 books a year, and I love my I love my Royal Spinus, and I love my big books. The next one of those is set in Scotland, which is fun. And yes.
What was it like to publish your first book?
To publish my first book, I don't think my memory goes back that far. My very first paid writing assignment, I was in the BBC. I was in BBC drama right after college, and I was working on plays, and I would think when I was working on the play, if I'd written this play, I wouldn't have finished it this way. So I went home and wrote a play. And with the bravado of a 22-year-old, I walked down the hall to the head of drama, and I said, I've written this play. And he called me in about a week later and said, we really like this, we're going to do it. And that was 22-year-old, and I've been a published writer ever since. My first book was a children's picture book, and I've sort of moved through age groups since then. Yeah.
So your first mystery was Evan?
First mystery was Evan, yeah. I'd been writing teenage books, and they'd been great because my husband had been laid off from his job of 20 years, and we had 3 kids in college. So I wrote lots of books about how to go to the prom and not go to the prom and have a friend and lose a friend and get a boyfriend and lose a boyfriend. And I was really fed up with it. And I think what the catalyst was finding Tony Hillerman. And I read Tony Hillerman and I thought, this isn't just, because, I grew up on the Ladies of the Golden Age and Agatha and all of those, and they're nice little puzzles. But Tony Hillerman touched my heart. And he took me somewhere, and I thought, that's what I want to write. I want to write a book that takes you somewhere and makes you think, oh, God, I've been transported to this place, because that's what Tony Hillerman did to me. In fact, when John and I did our first tour of the Southwest, I was the guide, sitting in the seat saying, see over there, that shiprock, look at that ledge, that's where the body fell from. And, because you could do that with him. And I thought, and I had to think where I wanted to write it, and so I didn't want to write it. I live in most of the year in Marin County, California, which is boring. So I was telling a friend about my childhood experiences in Wales, and my mother's family is Welsh, and all the quirks that were. And this friend said, oh, this is really interesting. Did you ever put any of this in a book? And I thought, oh, I do know this place. And so that's how Constable Evans came into being. That was my first mystery. And I have to tell you, my first signing at not this bookstore, but the one they had down on Main Street, was it?
Yeah, we had 2 on Main Street, and then we've been here since 1999.
Yeah. So my first signing, probably in 1998, I think, was my daughter's mother-in-law, one man, Barbara, and me.
The truth is that how many people, I'm really grateful to see all of you, and thank you for coming, but our book sales actually have almost nothing to do with how many people come to our events, because they ship. If you looked at the back of the store, if you were parked over here and you saw the solid line of shipping material, that's like a month worth. I know, it's really frightening, isn't it? I mean, I look there sometimes and I think, really? But it's because Scottsdale is a tourist destination and people didn't live downtown. So in 1989, when I started the store, everyone who came into our little store, it was right across from Molly's on Main Street, didn't live here. Mm-hmm. And so, 3 or 4 days in, I got out a yellow pad and I said to people, because they would come in and they say, this is such a good idea. Look at this cute little mystery bookstore. Wish we had one of those back home in Dubuque. And I thought, well, we could actually figure it out how to get books to you in Dubuque. So I got out a yellow pad and said, sign here. Mm-hmm. And I will write to you. I have written a newsletter for all of you every single month since November of 1989. Mm-hmm. Every single month. I've been late a couple of times. I'm going to be late this month, but I've never actually missed it. And so our customer base is really not local. Mm-hmm. It's only like 20% of you live here, and everybody else is everywhere else. And so it just kind of grew. We don't advertise. We've never had a marketing plan. I mean, I find it really fascinating. All of you are the people who actually market the store. Yep. We've also created an archive for those of you who are new to us. There are over 2,400 videos from all the years we've been doing this on our website now. And the inspiration for that was that Facebook decided to drop videos after 30 days. And so we had to decide, what to do, because YouTube could make the same decision. So my husband and a programmer all got together, and they put all these videos on Vimeo. But now it's a searchable database. So you can go to poisonpen.com, and in the part that says, that heading, like video and all the rest of it, is now a search box, and you can put in Rhys Bowen and everything that we've been able to find. Unfortunately, the technology behind this that came along with COVID, the only good thing that came along with COVID was Zoom. But up until then, it was other programs, and they haven't really held up. But we recently found our very first video ever was with P.D. James in 1995. And we have found it, and we're using AI to try to make it so you could actually watch it. And so we may find more, than we currently have. But I think that's a great legacy to leave behind, the audio and the video for all of this. So I encourage you, for authors that you're interested in, you can type their name into the search box and see over the years what we might have had to say.
What we need is a Mystery Writers Hall of Fame, don't we? So that we could have things like that P.D. James thing in it, and people could go and look at it.
I think it'll be really interesting. I'm the thriller legend this year, so I have to go because it was me that, in a drunken remark at the Arizona Biltmore, started the International. It's really true. The International Thriller Writers Association. I got tired of the thrillers in the bar with me. Everything at a convention happens in the bar. And I am almost never there because I'm not really a drinker, but as I was the host for this conference 23 years ago, I was in the bar. And so I got kind of tired of listening to the complaints about no professional support, no award nominations and all, and I slammed my glass down on the bar and I said, so go form your own fucking organization. And they did. And they did. So this is year 21. But, you know, it's kind of nice to have a legacy. You have books to leave behind, but I don't. So that's my
no,
legacy.
absolutely, yeah. No,
I think it's fascinating. Yes.
I'm an out-of-towner. I'm in California. I live near Greece.
Oh, good.
And I really enjoyed your videos, and I've watched them for years and told people. So I was visiting here in Tucson. I said, I have to come and see you and meet this.
Well, thank you.
Those videos have been fabulous. And I go back and look at old ones and stuff.
Well, now it's easier to find them. Actually, on the trip we were in, I was in either Bustleton or Albany, Southwest Australia, not too long ago. And I went into a bookstore while I was wandering around this little old-fashioned town. And it's my habit, if I see an author whose books I'm fond of, to take a photo of it if it's there in the bookstore. So I had Joe Finder, and I can't remember who, but anyway, there's a pile of Michael Connelly books, whatever it is. And so I was taking a photo, and I saw the owner of the bookstore looking at me with deep suspicion, because there's a thing called showrooming when people will go into a bookstore, you know, and take photos so they can go home and order it on Amazon and save money. And I thought, oh my God, she thinks I'm showrooming. So I went over and I said to her, I'm really sorry. I'm here because I own a bookstore. And she looked at me. She said, oh my God, you're the Poison Pen lady. And she said, is it okay if we use your videos for our discussion club? And I said, sure. She said, we've been doing it for years, you know.
And you said, no, take them back. Yeah.
Well, the truth is, and it was kind of embarrassing, there's a whole string of Australian authors coming to see us this spring. We have Benjamin Stevenson, which is amazing, Sally Hepburn, Sulari Gento, Candace Fox, somebody else, and Michael Robotham wrote to me the other day. And anyway, she said to me in this kind of sad way, she said, I have to watch your videos because none of our authors ever come to see me in little Albany, Australia. And I thought, this is really embarrassing in a way, you know.
Yeah.
But still, I thought it was. So I came home and wrote to Michael and his team, and I said, here's the story. And they said, oh, you're so famous. And I said, no, I'm actually not. I'm just the conduit. Michael is the one who's famous.
Yeah.
And I'm only, you know, I'm only the instrument,
Yeah.
which
But-
is true.
But, you know, when you look at Albany, Australia, and you look at Sydney, Melbourne, all that, they're 3,000 miles apart. You don't just pop there.
No, Southwest Australia is very much a sort of backwater for Australia.
Yeah.
However, it's really coming along for a lot of reasons, and it's charming. And one of the things that's happened, because it has been kind of a backwater, is that a lot of the old architecture and everything is still there. You know, they haven't mowed it down and you know, so they could build glorious new glass palaces and everything. It's really lovely, that Victorian ironwork and
Yeah,
everything. And
yeah.
Bustleton is turning into a fabulous beach resort.
Oh, okay,
Who knew?
yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I really loved
Yeah.
it.
Well, I have a niece there. Claire's cousin lives there.
In
Fu-
Bustleton?
No, in Fremantle.
In Fremantle.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But that's part of Perth.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a great trip to go to a place where where few people actually go,
Yeah.
and see all the good things that they are now doing there. But you know, the world, now that we're all connected digitally, the world is really very small in that sense. I mean,
Yeah,
who would
when
have
we
imagined?
we've done some of these. I've done them remotely from my house in California, and we have people who are coming in from Sweden or from Australia, or you know, it's very interesting to find
a
out.
regular in Italy. We have another one from New Zealand. I mean, it's really. I worry about the lady from Italy because it's like 3 a.m. and she's in Italy and she's always there, you know. And I do wonder sometimes whether she's a vampire or something, you know, in disguise. But anyway, sorry. Any more? And thank you for your very kind comments. I appreciate that. Anybody else have a question? Yes, ma'am.
That's an interesting question. I have had so many options you would not believe. I currently have one with a very big TV company in England for the Royal Spinus series. They've got as far as writing the first script. It looks hopeful, but there have been so many of them that have looked hopeful and suddenly disappear. The company is called Monumental, and they've done the Marlowe Murder Club, and they did the original Ghosts, so they've done some really good things. And they're lovely. I've met them, and we got along really well. So I'm hopeful, but you know, until I turn on the TV set and go, oh, that's mine, I don't believe it, because I've been quite close before. I had an option on the first Royal Spinus book for what the papers called a major motion picture, and they tried, I think, 3 or 4 script writers, and then the person who'd bought it moved to another company. It all fell apart. So, that's how it is. They actually pay me quite a lot for an option, but and then it fizzles. So, I've had options on, I think, everything. Molly, Evan, several on
I
Evan.
know you had
several
Evan,
on Evan. I had at one point it was CBS that made an option on Evan, and I thought, I'm going to have sheep in Malibu. It's
Right.
But,
Ian has a couple of questions from the
Yes,
online audience.
yes.
What are they?
First question for Claire. Will you be writing any books on your own?
I definitely would like to. I have some ideas that I'm working on developing. Right now, I'm a school teacher. I'm a little tired myself. I just finished directing a 60-child version of Shrek Jr. that we closed on Friday night and then had to dismantle the whole stage and take it to a storage unit. So I pretty much slept yesterday. But anyway, so with the Molly books, doing one a year is a good amount for me. I would like to ramp that up and be able to have a series of my own. So I'm working on that.
And I have to tell you, the play was fantastic. Joe in the audience here said it was the best. Yeah.
4th through 6th graders. The moms did the costumes, which were unbelievable.
Yeah.
The kids did the sound, the lighting, the makeup.
Yeah. And it was in a real theater. It was just.
Incredible.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Can you explain the difference between suffragists and suffragettes?
Yes. One is in England and one is in America. The suffragettes are in England and the suffragists are in America.
Why? Is there a difference? Do you
I
know?
don't know. I
I
don't know.
actually do
Oh,
know
you- oh,
that.
she-
yes.
she knows everything, yeah.
So it was derogatory to it was started out being derogatory to the women, like, oh, you're a suffragette, like to make it seem small and unimportant. But they, like many people do with derogatory words, they took it to themselves and said, yes, I am. I am a suffragette. And so in England, they called themselves the suffragettes.
Yeah. Any more?
2 more.
Yeah.
How do you stay motivated to write?
Well, me? I've written 62 books, I think, in the mystery genre now. So I have more ideas, I think, than I can ever write in my life because, once your brain is sort of tuned in, you think, oh, that would be interesting. Well, I'd love to write this book. And luckily for my big books, obviously the series are pinned me to, what Molly might do or what Lady Georgie might do. But the big books, I can go anywhere I like. The one I'm writing at the moment is half set in 1450. Now, is that slightly different, And the good thing about that is not many people know about that. So if there's something wrong, nobody's going to say, well, but no, I had a wonderful editor for my first big books. And, I'd say, I'd love to write a book about a young woman who becomes a cook for Queen Victoria. And she'd go, wonderful. And I'd say, I'd love to write a book about Venice in 4 different time periods. And she'd go, brilliant. I think if I actually said I'd like to write a book about a man who becomes a hermit for 35 years in a cave in Tibet, she would go, interesting. She wouldn't say, are you mad? But no, so it's fun to explore. That's what I like about these big books, is I can go different places. The one that's coming out this summer, which is called The Castle in the Glen, in case you're interested. And I think it's going to have a cover reveal in People magazine soon, so you'll see what the cover looks like. It's a story of a very, very famous writer, think Agatha Christie level, who is suffering from dementia and can't finish her last book. And
It's great. I've read it.
What's that?
I said it's great. I've read it.
I thought you were going to say it's like my mother and I'm going to do it. And she hires a young and up-and-coming writer to finish it for her. And the book is set on the Isle of Skye, which is strange because the woman is Australian. So the young woman goes up to Skye to do the research. And the more she does, the more she becomes convinced that it's a real story. and that this woman is somehow part of it. So it's like peeling off the layers of the onion.
You know, one has to wonder if Rhys weren't a writer, she'd actually be an accomplished criminal. Just
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And
And finally, what do you both do to reward yourselves after finishing a book?
Well, we're going out to dinner on the actual pub day, which is Tuesday. We go out to dinner. We're going to have a spa day at a hotel later this week.
Yes.
So yes, you have to give. My husband is quite sick at the moment, so I've pretty much been caregiver and stuck at home. So I haven't been able to do the sort of things I'd normally do, which is to go for like Sedona for a weekend or something. I said to Claire, I haven't been out to dinner since the middle of December, so it's you know,
to be fair, John's 91.
92.
92
92,
now, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know,
And
he
he's had
probably
some-
doesn't feel great any day.
No, he's had some major health problems this year, so I'm pretty much caregiver at the moment. So I'm hoping at some stage to have a escape for a couple of days on the sea or something. Yeah.
My favorite thing that I did to reward myself was after the first book that we co-wrote was published. I took the first check from that and bought an electric blue e-bike and called my bike Molly.
Wow. You can't top that, that's for sure. All right. Thank you, Ian, very much.
Yeah.
Does anybody have a final question they would like to ask?
A final question anywhere? Anything you want? Yes.
How did, Claire, why did you start writing? Why did you feel that you had the inclination to be a writer like your mother? What age?
Writing has always been a part of something that I've done, even if it was just writing little skits for every job that I've been a part of. I enjoy humor too. I'm in an improv group, and I think that's why I was drawn to Molly, because in between the very serious mystery, there's always an aspect of humor, and there's always Molly will never let herself be put down for too long without having a good comeback. So I've always used writing as a humorous tool, and I guess having a mom who's done it my entire life, I just thought, well, I can probably write too. So
Well,
How hard
No.
can it be, right?
but I have to tell you, when she was a child, she would write plays for the family. She has two sisters and a brother, and she would write the play, and then one of the girls would say, well, I'm not going to be in it unless I can be the princess. And the other one would say, well, I'm not going to be in it unless I can be the good fairy. And Claire always ended up as the witch or something, because nobody...
That's unfair.
yes,
Yeah.
and my brother would always, of course, be the prince with a little towel tied around
he
him.
always
He
had
was always the
a
prince.
towel pin around him for a cape, yeah.
Well, it's a family enterprise. I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah, yeah.
absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
So thank you all very much for coming. John, did we give out numbers? Yes. Thank you. All right, I'm going to give away the Shamrock. Ha a surprise today. So would you, no, Claire,
Claire.
you
Claire,
pick
choose
a
a
number between 1 and 12.
7.
All right, you get the Shamrock, and it really needs water. so I certainly recommend that you take it home and do that.
And there's some nice cookies and things on the table. Please help
right,
yourselves.
there are, and lemonade.
And yes, of course you can. Yeah,
And
come on up.
So what we're going to do at this point, if you guys will fold up your chairs and move them against that wall, the authors are going to stay here. And if you'll line up by number and then anybody behind them, and you can get your book signed and take photos. Right. Thank you, ladies.